Hey everybody, a number of you have reached out to me, including a whole bunch of my front seat friends, asking what's going on with my journey. And for the past quite a long while, I just haven't had any bandwidth. And so for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, I've had some bandwidth. And so, hey, I should make an update video letting people know what's going on, answering the questions they've been asking me. This is an update, what's going on with my journey as of June 2025. There's 4 things I want to share with you. The first one is that I kind of feel like I'm in between time of my life. One chapter's ended, getting ready for another chapter to start. It does seem like there's some big changes coming into my life in the next 2, 3, 4 months. It's been in the works for a while now, working behind the scenes to bring those changes, to fruition. And the frustrating thing is I don't really know what's going to happen. Are things going to go this way? Are things going to go that way? I feel like I'm at a big crossroads where a lot is going to change. I just don't know exactly when, and I don't know exactly what is going to transpire. Which way will my path take me? And of course, I mentioned there's some frustration there, but hey, that's what it is. Just kind of have to wait and let things unfold. But I promise you, once they do, I will keep you updated and say, okay, I'll give you all the details. Whichever way my life ends up taking me, whichever path I end up taking, I'll give you a full update of whatever adventure I end up going on. And just keeping it real, second thing I want to share with you is that I tell you, this has been a really tough season in my life. January 2024, going back a year and a half, something happened in the life of someone close to me, and that had great impact on my journey and continues to have impact on my journey. So that made things tough in my personal life. And then last year, October 23 and October 24 in 2024, a handful of months ago, 7, 8 months ago, there were 2 separate incidents, very tough incidents involving people very close to me. And for me, October 23rd is pretty much where the wheels came off for me. I held it together pretty well, took care of some things to take care of, but it has been brutal. It's been rough. All of that has taken up a lot of my emotional energy, a lot of my time. As many of you know, when my son Zane passed away on February 8th, 2016, and that still to this day is, and hopefully always will be, the toughest part of my journey in my adult life. That was the roughest period in my adult life I've ever been through. And I hope I don't ever go anything rougher than that. And it took me a good 2, 3 years to heal from that. But I have to tell you, this that I'm in right now, it is a close second. Like I said, there's been a lot of heartbreak. There's been a lot of pain and misery, but there's also been some joy. I learned years ago, finally, no one taught me when I was younger, but I learned to prioritize joy, to put joy into my life, to take the time to really savor the good things that come my way. So yes, I've had some joy along the way, but it has been a rough part of my journey. It's been exhausting. It's impacted my ability to do content, to do updates, to do posts, to share some of my life on social media. I love doing that, and often I just don't have it. I know that the first year after Zane died, I'd record a podcast and take months before I could get it out because I just couldn't do that creative energy. And people say, well, why'd you release that podcast then? What was the purpose of the timing on releasing that podcast? Then it's like, I finally got to it. I finally had the energy to do it. And in one sense, that's kind of what's been going on now. Now, like I said at the beginning of this update, I feel like I have a little more bandwidth the past 3, 4 weeks, and it feels like things are easing up. Fingers crossed, like I'm coming out of this tough time. I think the next 2, 3, 4 months, a lot of those issues will be, for the most part, resolved, and that dark chapter will come to an end. But yeah, that's been part of what's going on in my journey. Is I've just been going through a tough time, and eventually I will be able to tell that story. When it involves other people, it's different. You kind of have to respect people where they're at. But at some point, I'll be able to more tell that story. That's the second thing. First thing is I'm kind of in this between chapter. Which way is my life going to go? And the second one, I'm in a season of life that's just got a lot of pain and heartache in it. And that brings me to the third item I have for you today. Kind of what's going on in here for me. There's a quote from 1902, James Allen. You cannot move within and stand still without. And what that means to me is that if you want forward progress in your life, if you want forward progress in your journey, when I'm working with people, helping them with some life change alchemy, I tell them you got to move within here if you want to move out there. And so doing journaling, doing reflection, surfacing and dealing with defective stories that don't work, that are hindering you, that's all part of doing that inner work. I call it the inward expedition. And the heartache that I've been through that I mentioned, this season of deep heartache that's been going on since October 23rd, it has surfaced some things for me. You know, if you've ever made a stew, when I was a kid, I used to make stews, and you kind of stir it and you kind of bring out the potatoes or the carrots from the bottom, and there's some stuff that's come up from the bottom in here. Two things in particular that I'll mention. One, when I'm working with people and I'm helping them have life change success, I teach them and help them really embrace this thing no one wants to embrace, and that is that you are both flawed and magnificent. We are all flawed and magnificent. The parts of you that are just broken, you got to love yourself and love those parts anyways. And yes, there are parts of you that are absolutely magnificent. When I'm working with people, I'm able to tell them, here's the parts of you that are magnificent. And sometimes they cry, it kind of blows their mind. And for me, this season, you know, what's come to the surface is I'm very aware of where I'm flawed, how choices I've made didn't work out the way I wanted to, you know, mistakes I've made, challenges I have internally, brokenness I have. I'm very aware of being flawed. And at the same time, I can say in here, you know, hey, I'm magnificent. I've got some strengths. They feel far away. My strengths and my skills feel far away. You know, I feel kind of ineffective and unable to do much. And that's just ugly. It's just awful stuff. And so I'll keep dealing with that. I mean, I know the truth is I am both flawed and magnificent. And I know that that is okay and to love myself regardless. But hey, that's one of the things going on inside me. The second thing going on in here, it's kind of interesting. There's a real hunger to feel free to really speak my mind. I just really want to be able to speak my mind. You know, when my son Zane passed away, one of the ways that impacted me, it's funny, that impacted me a lot, that, you know, my son passing away tremendously. And people that were close to me too, you know, at the time, a year or two, three into it, they'd say, oh, you've changed, you're a different person. And that was true and not true. And some of them didn't like the change. And what was true that I had changed, what wasn't true, I wasn't a different person. The things that I went through with Zane, they made me more me. It's like false layers got pulled off and I became more authentically me. For example, I got a real just distaste for BS in organizations and beliefs and philosophy and people, in corporations, profit and nonprofit. I just couldn't tolerate it anymore. And so consequently, I drifted away from organizations and philosophies and things and groups of people that just had a lot of BS in them. I just couldn't do it. Now, that being said, I didn't speak up very much. You know, I didn't really say much. You know, I didn't really feel safe really speaking my mind, but that lack of tolerance was in here, that no tolerance for BS. And now, this current tough time I'm through, you know, I just have that hunger to speak my mind. And, you know, I've done some reflecting and journaling, and, you know, when I was a kid, I heard about fight or flight, you know, tragedy or trauma or a threat comes to your life and you're going to fight it or run away from it. And over the years, they added to it, you know, freeze. You kind of freeze up. Some people instead freeze up. And then the newest one for me to learn about in my journey, I learned about a number of years ago, is called fawning. You know, that's awful. I don't like fawning. So there's fight, flight, freeze, or fawning. And the reason I don't like fawning is that's the one that I learned. I had a pretty traumatic childhood, and I think that is the response I learned kind of as a survival skill. And for me, fawning expressed itself in being really nice to people and don't upset people and don't make people mad and don't do anything for sure that would piss people off and keep people happy and learn good EQ to keep from setting people off, you know, and becoming very much a people pleaser. And, you know, I think that response is not a healthy response. I think that response, it's understandable, and it definitely helped me survive. But here's a little bit of life change wisdom for you. The things that will help you survive, those tools that help you survive, they will not help you thrive. You have to let go of those tools, your survival tools, and embrace thrival tools. And that's a hard thing. I mean, speaking from my own journey, that's a hard thing to do. But it definitely, I think that survival skill of, you know, kind of people pleasing, it's hindered me my entire journey. I think it's particularly hindered me my life in the past 5-6 years. And this experience, like I said, brought me real hunger to where I wanna not do that anymore. I think that's one of the reasons that I loved Anthony Bourdain so much, is he was bold and irreverent, and he didn't seem afraid at all to speak his mind. And I want to be more bold. I've been reading a book on being more bold. And I am inside. I'm pretty irreverent. And I want to express that more. Now, I don't want to be Anthony Bourdain. I don't want to be bold and irreverent like him, but I want to feel more free to be a little more bold and a little more irreverent. And not have the fear of upsetting someone or heaven forbid, pissing someone off. I don't want to live with that fear. At the same time, I don't go around saying things with the purpose of pissing people off. That's not who I want to be, or for the purpose of upsetting people. But at the same time, I don't want to not tell my story because I'm afraid that some people won't like it. And more general about it lately, that's just ridiculous. My story is my story. It's precious. And for me not to tell it because of fear of others' responses, that's just not cool. I'm reading a really good book right now. Your story is your power. And that's been very liberating and helpful to me. So yeah, that's part of what's been going on in here. I want to have the freedom to be more real and more authentic and tell my story more, not feel afraid of upsetting people. And the other thing is dealing with that flawed and magnificent. All right, I mentioned that quote, you cannot move within and stand still without. So what's happening? What kind of movement do I have right now in my life? Well, I'm really excited. I finally have some bandwidth. Like I said, some of the misery in my journey has eased up a little and I have a little more bandwidth. And one of the things I've been able to do is get back to creating content, particularly content around food. I love doing that. It's very fulfilling for me. I've gotten back to the Culinary Treasure podcast, and hopefully I never take my foot off the gas of that again. I love doing that kind of content. I've written some articles for This Is a Culinary Treasure. I've got a whole food platform built out, for food content. I've got the Culinary Treasure Network, and part of the Culinary Treasure Network is the Culinary Treasure podcast, and I've got the Your Next Craving show, which I look forward to getting back to someday, and I've got the This Is Culinary Treasure website with articles. So I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing some articles. I feel really good about that. At the same time, a little bit of heartache there for me. Because truth be told, there's 4 places that I really want to do content. I want to do more like this, sharing my journey. I'm on an epic journey. I'm working on a video that I'll get out, probably not for a number of months, but what I mean when I say I'm on an epic journey. So I want to do more content about my journey. Of course, I'm thankfully doing food content. I want to do travel content. And the 4th kind of content I really want to get back to and lean into brings me a tremendous amount of fulfillment is life change content, helping people head off toward the life their heart longs for. So that'll come eventually. Current situation, man, just not a lot of bandwidth. So I'm doing the food stuff and that feels really good to me. And then the other fun thing is I've got a number of adventures planned out, starting in June and maybe going into the summer. I've got 2 trips to the Oregon coast already planned. I absolutely love the Oregon coast. I'm going to savor it and drink it in and enjoy it and hopefully create some content while I'm out there. And then I have a handful of fun to me adventures heading off, revisiting some culinary spots here in the Pacific Northwest that I absolutely love. Want to go back to those places and enjoy them and maybe take pictures, maybe get an article. Some of those places, I'd love to sit down with the people who make the magic happen at some of those places and record episodes of the Culinary Treasure podcast with them. So I'll be reaching out to those people. And I got to tell you that the thought of those adventures brings me so much joy. I would encourage you, make sure that you go on adventures that bring you joy, that are fun to you. You got to have fun in your life. And so I'm excited. The month of June, we'll see what happens July and August, these things that I have planned. And yes, I will be posting about them as bandwidth permits. So you can follow along. So that's it. That's what's going on. The 4 things I mentioned. Right now I'm kind of in between chapters, kind of waiting to see what happens, which way my life is going to go. It's going to be significant. Going to go this way or this way. When it does, I'll let you know. The second thing is I've been in a real season of heartache and difficulty, and that looks like it might be coming to an end. Doing lots of work on my inward journey. That's always good. And then I've got some fun adventures coming up in the month of June and probably into July. So it's a delight to have you along on my journey. I think I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my front seat friends. I was growing up, you could jump in the front seat of a car when I was a kid and call shotgun. And that meant everyone's running toward the car, you'd go shotgun, and that meant you got to sit in the front seat. And that meant you got a better view and you could look out and see more. And I feel like a lot of my friends, they love following along on social media. They say that I kind of let them sit in the front seat with me. By the way, speaking of why we called shotgun, When I was a kid, I got to go to Disneyland a lot and Knott's Berry Farm a couple of times. And they used to have a ride, an attraction, a thing at Knott's Berry Farm where you could ride in a real life stagecoach and it'd go around. There was horses and bandits would come. And you'd have the person with the reins in the stagecoach, and then you'd have someone sitting next to them holding a shotgun, and they were riding shotguns. When the bandits came, they could, take care of the bandits. That's exactly what happened on that attraction. I sometimes want to call people, my shotgun friends, but that doesn't sound very good. And social media doesn't like sometimes when you use that GUN word. And so I've just come to call the people that say, hey, I love that I get to go along with you in your journey. They're my front seat friends. I try to make it possible when I hand bandwidth to ride along in the front seat with me. Whether they follow me on Facebook or Instagram or watch Instagram stories. I do a little bit on TikTok. Sometimes I post articles on StephenSchamler.com. And so those of you that are my front seat fans, it's a joy to have you along on the journey. I so much appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you to everyone that's been reaching out, asking what's going on. Anyways, that's the update. I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm Stephen Schamler. I will talk to you very soon. Cheers, everybody.